This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
All right. Welcome everyone to our CPA meeting of June 20th. This is our first fully citizen-run CPA in a long time. First one that I have ever been at. Yeah. Not as long as I don't think as long as you think. All right. The agenda, the first thing on the agenda is approval of minutes, although I don't believe we received the minutes. So I think we should table that. Oh, John Bruner. Yes, sir. So we'll table that until our next meeting and hopefully we can approve them then. Public speak. Is anybody here from the public to speak on anything that is not on the agenda? Guessing no, but you never know. All right, great. City officials is the next thing on the agenda. We have no update there. And account balances. Nothing's changed from our last meeting. I tried to find it where I could pull it up here. What do we got?
This is from the last meeting.
That's from last. Yeah. All right, so
you want to pull it up on the screen?
Yeah,
so everybody can see it, including our other members.
Yeah, except it's not. That would be great. That'd be great. We're just going to take.
Meeting and CPA account balances.
Oh yeah. Okay. Perfect.
513.4, but that's
perfect. All right. So
that's what this one was.
And then we'll share screen here.
okay. Nope. Yeah.
Present. Is that?
Yep.
It's good.
All right. And can I? Sorry, when I did teach online for a year, but it was on Zoom.
Yeah.
Go back to the
Yep, down arrows.
Can I go like this? Right. Sorry.
rolling.
I'm like, okay. Try it. Yeah.
There it is.
All right. So I think people can see this. What?
Somebody's trying.
Thank you. Greg, do you mind looking at this and kind of, I feel like you have the greatest handle on what this means in sort of everyday terms.
Sure. We have that double lined beginning balance current fiscal year shows, column by column amounts in different categories, and then appropriations subtracted from those beginning balances for each of the columns. So working down, you can see on the left-hand side the different projects that there have been allocations towards, and then fund balances as of, this is April 30th, of 0 in open space and 0 in historic preservation, and 90,000, 915, 914 in affordable housing, and then 118,000, 934 in undesignated. And then their pending appropriations earmarks beneath that.
So to go back for that 118 though, that's part of the reserve fund that So it's not necessarily available. It's what's been recommended by the auditor for us.
Correct. So underneath that, there's $120,000
Right.
in red there. It's
Okay.
effectively
Yep.
the offset says unavailable to spend for
Yep.
financial best practices.
Yep.
So we're calling that a reserve
Yeah.
based on suggested best practices by our fund auditor.
And my understanding is after the fiscal year flips on July 1st, right, that this will be refreshed with new funds, and I can't recall from our last meeting if we have an idea of that number yet.
We'd have to go back and
We have
look
a
at our budget.
budgeted amount. I think it's good to note that there is a difference between the budgeted amount and the actual cash received
Right.
from the, from the state and so forth. So it's a little bit of a mismatch in timing sometimes between what is effectively available and what is in the account.
So the budget, it's in there. It's in the Google Drive. It's under admin. And CPA budget FY25 final PDF.
So this is what's being budgeted next year, but as Greg said, this isn't. I mean, this is sort of representative of best guess of what the committee would have. All this is important because we do have people here today that have been really patient with the committee and are asking for money. I guess one question, I guess, because we would approve it and then it would go to city council. By the time it gets to city council, we're dealing with then it would be refreshed. I mean, like we couldn't be signed, sealed
Couldn't
from
be
the city
administered.
today, right? But okay.
So just as a reminder, so for 25, we have reserved for open space, 110,000 for historic preservation and 110,000 for affordable housing. And then there's certain projects that we already approved for FY25. So 200,000 going to Ferry Street affordable housing. And then there's the admin costs to the CPA. I presume that whenever a senior planner or assistant planner gets hired, that they will be assigned and that money will be needed to offset their salary costs for overseeing this committee. And then it's putting $250,000 into a CPA reserve fund. So basically we have $110,000 allocated for each.
Correct. The reserve fund is that the undesignated?
Yeah, I think so.
We're using different language on different,
I know.
but the reserve fund is effectively the undesignated budgeted amount.
Right.
And we're required by the Community Preservation Act itself to designate certain amounts for specific categories, just as we've on the committee at large. That's so we have some that is undesignated, but then restricted funds for specific categories, open space, historic preservation, and global.
And just as it relates to tonight with what's next on the agenda, the project that's on the agenda would be able to come out of the 110 for open space. So that, I mean, while there's more in the reserve fund, that's what's designated for that account for the next fiscal year.
Sure, and I think what the committee we need to think about is the request, and we've asked the applicant to think about phasing it over various fiscal years, so
Right.
that's something we'll
Yeah.
discuss, but if we were to fund it in whole, it would only leave $20,000 left in
Right.
the space account for the rest of the fiscal year.
All right. I think we've got a handle on that as much as we can at this point. The next thing on the agenda is Lathrop. Thank you so much for your work in presenting last time. We really appreciate you coming back to the committee and hearing. We'd love to hear kind of your responses to the concerns we had before. Anywhere.
At the end, you can all see you. Command the table.
Okay. I'm Barbara Walberg, I'm a resident at Lathrop and a member of the steering committee of the Land Conservation Committee there. And these are my resident colleagues, and our Chief Financial Officer, Holly Smith-Foray, is with us. And we are here to explain what we're asking for from you. I have a copy, if anyone would like a paper copy of the response, page and a half, that we sent to the committee, what, a week ago? Something like that. So here it comes.
See it.
I believe it was sent. Yeah, it was sent to me, but it wasn't disseminated to the committee yet. So paper.
Thank you. Thank you for being prepared.
All right, so at the May 29 meeting, I'm going to walk you through this. Would that be
Sure,
helpful?
that'd be great.
Yeah, sure.
So at the May 29 meeting, you'll remember that we agreed at your request that we would come back and address two questions. One was, would we take the money in 3 equal parts? We have a request, a project for $99,000, a little bit more. And would we take $33,000, 25, 26, and 27? And this basically says, sure, we can work with that. Any questions about that? Does anybody want me to explain more how we think that we can do that?
No, but I just want to be clear. So you're okay with an even distribution over 3 years?
Yeah.
And you don't need more in the first year and less in the second year. It's just, you're good with
As
this?
far as we can tell now,
Okay.
we don't have secure year by year, item by item bids,
It's, yeah.
but we do have 3 contractors who are interested in doing this work. And from one of them who has walked our land for two days, the guy put in and was fine. But he said he thought, yeah, first year work could be done about that.
Great.
So we can do it. Now, if you wanted to give us 35 in the first year or 40 in the first year, just to ensure, you could do that. All right. So question 2 had to do with the public benefits of the project. And you'll remember that we talked about various different kinds of public benefits, and that there was some conversation about trails and signs and so on. And but the central question is, what are the public benefits that this project offers? And so in number 2, at the second half of the page, of page 1 and over on page 2, we tried to answer that question about public benefits. And this document was worked out with Holly, our CFO, our CEO, Patrick Hardwin, who you remember was here last time on May 29, and the steering committee of the Land Conservation Committee, some of whose members are here tonight. So what we're saying is that the public benefits that pertain to this project are 2. One is conservation. We are going to remove invasive plants from 78 acres of conservation restricted land in the city of Easthampton. And those restricted lands are joined with other restricted lands in the Park Hill area. So what we're trying to do is to create a wildlife refuge, if you will, in an area that is increasingly urban and increasingly invaded. And that project will benefit everybody in the city and everybody in the valley, because it protects and increases the population of the birds and the pollinators and all the other critters. There's a second benefit, and that is education of the public about our project. So the question there is, how will the public learn about our project, about invasive plants and native plants and how important it is to deal with them, and about the benefits that accrue when you remove invasives and nurture native plants? And we propose that we will take these steps, which are listed at the bottom of page 1. We will mount an annual guided walk and talk program advertised to the public, open to the general public, to show our invasives work and its results. This is a chance for people to learn, because the public benefit here is education. So this is a chance for people to learn about our project and to see the land on which it's being enacted. Second, we will do a website accessible to the public with information about our project. And third, we will have informational signs on the land at things like, this is our invasives work funded by the, CPCs of the, here's an area where we have removed 6,000 invasive shrubs. Over the page, we offer an invitation for anyone who wants to learn about invasive control to contact us, and we'll give contact information. You want your group, you want individual, we'll take you on our land, we'll show you, we'll talk to you. And finally, we've already presented programs and newsletter articles for other Kendall affiliated campuses around the country, and we would be happy to adapt those for local audiences. So those are the public benefits that we envision producing for this work. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I got a quick question. I guess I'm just getting.
I'm so sorry.
Does Kendall own the land? Does Kendall own the land that you're, proposing?
Lathrop owns the land. Lathrop is affiliated with Kendall. Kendall is an association of different retirement communities around the country. So there's Ohio, like that. So Lathrop owns the land.
Lathrop owns the land.
Lathrop affiliates with Kendall. But Lathrop owns the land, and on that land, 78 acres of it are in conservation restriction, which is held by the Kestrel Land Trust.
Kestrel
has they don't own it, but they have the conservation. And they, by the way, are collaborating with us in this grant, and they are providing a speaker and some staff help and so on for our once a year public programs.
And how much is Northampton funding?
Northampton is funding 19,000 and you're funding 99,000. And you may ask.
And we did.
You did. Okay. One is that they have less land than you do.
Okay.
CR acres for them are 26, yours are 78. And also they have given us 4 grants, the CPA Committee, in the last 7 or 8 years. And so their portions are farther ahead. You're behind, that's the answer.
So there's really no chance, I know Kendall's the affiliate, that they're gonna come in and say, listen, we want to build more housing because it's housing, right? They wouldn't come and say something like that. Okay.
They couldn't do it.
Oh, they couldn't. All right.
Well, and I think previously, when you came to us, whenever that was, 2 years ago, or when that it was needing a conservation restriction, and then you went and got that, right? Is that?
Yes.
So that, yeah.
Okay.
I don't remember when it was. I remember, was it 6 years ago? Oh, it all blends together.
We wanted and you all said not until you put the land into conservation restriction that you promised when you built the place.
Okay.
And then we did it. So now we have the 78 acres.
Such a complicated formula, but I get it.
We know. Any other questions?
Yeah, I mean, this might be a little bit of a repeat. I feel like maybe we touched on this theme to some extent, but I can't remember the answer. So Lathrop itself has a budget, and some of that budget is to support initiatives of its residents. Is that right?
Lathrop is a nonprofit,
Sure.
and the residents pay the resident fees and their other sources of capital. And yes, of course, we have a budget. We provide services. The community provides services for its residents.
Because I know there are some funds that Lathrop is putting forward for this project,
Yes.
right?
Yes,
Can you remind us
yes,
about
yeah,
that component?
yes. So the component that Lathrop is offering for this is, first of all, $27,000 in cash. And that comes entirely from resident donations through the Land Conservation Committee and through the residents' councils, which are the resident governing bodies on the two campuses. And in addition to that, Lathrop will offer, which are listed in the budget, Lathrop will offer fairly significant in-kind services. So mowing of the fields to control invasives, staff time to run these programs that we're going to offer, and staff time in the finance office to manage all of this and get the money straightened out, plus a lot of Lathrop resident volunteer time. So yes, and in our budget, we costed out the volunteer and staff time according to the formulas that are generally used for grants.
So not to get into weeds here too much, but so the resident organization will put forward through donations, $27,000 in
We
cash.
have the money in hand.
Lathrop itself will put together in-kind donations of labor and use of equipment and time and so forth. Is Lathrop itself putting forward cash out of its own budget?
Lathrop will forward the cash for paying the contractors as we get reimbursed, but they are not contributing cash out of its own budget. They are contributing in kind. Now that's a bit of a difficult decision because when we pay the contractors who come in and brush hog the fields to keep down the multiflora rows, which is part of this project, we pay them. Is that an in-kind service or is that cash?
You're saying Lathrop is already paid, like Lathrop is paying them.
Lathrop will
Right.
pay these contractors to come in, these brush hoggers come in and manage invasives in this way. So, and that's our part of what is paid here. So is that cash what we pay them or is it in kind? Hard to tell.
You lost me a little bit. So
So they're paying landscapers to come in and do brush hogging outside of this project, outside of this specific budget. So they're coming in and they're doing it anyway as part of landscape maintenance.
not specifically for invasives.
Not specifically for invasives,
as
but
part of its
but part of
landscaping
it is
budget.
landscaping budget, and it's, the result is to
Yeah,
offset.
no,
some-
actually, we're not charging public funds for our landscaping budget.
No.
Yeah.
You're using Lathrop funds to do landscaping, which includes the brush hogging, which then has the effect of keeping down the multiflora rows.
But in our budget, we only costed out what it would pay, what it would cost Lathrop to pay the landscapers, the landscaping company, to come in and brush hog the fields that are in the CR acres. That's the only amount that's shown in this budget, the only amount. Is just what it's going to cost us to get these brush hoggers in. Nothing more.
Holly, well, do you want me to jump in a little bit, please? So our land, we do have a land conservation line under our buildings and grounds. And we do tend to pay about $30,000 a year or so towards land conservation efforts. In addition to what the residents.
Describe what those efforts are.
Well, like Barbara was saying, I mean, it's really driven by the residents and that, you know, so we will, if we have a demonstration garden, you know, we'll purchase the native plants, the care and keeping of the gardens, you know, paying the new person who's tending the in garden, which is a, you know, native species garden. That's going to be about $800 of that every year. So, I mean, it's just ongoing.
And we should think about this land conservation budget as separate from landscaping.
Absolutely. And so we don't, so we also have a landscaping,
Yes.
but we also have a land conservation. And so that's a different line item. I mean, and it could include maybe, because I believe, Barbara, we do the brush hogging ourselves. Is that right? Do we have a brush hog on the?
No, we pay, Spring Valley.
Okay, I
To do
think,
the brush,
okay.
pay Spring Valley to do the brush hogging.
So-
And we pay them to brush hog all of our fields. Not all of our fields are in the CR acres. So what I costed out for the budget was only that portion of what we pay to the Spring Valley that goes towards, brush hogging the fields that are in the CR. That's all that's in here.
But I think the important point from Lathrop's perspective is that this is also important for us as an organization. So it's something that we also will fund and we will support as a business or as a non. It's an essential part of what we.
That's good, because it is your land and
Well, it is.
as we
And
just established, so.
It attracts resident. I mean,
Yeah.
just as you can tell, we've got an amazing resident body.
Yeah,
So to us, it makes a lot of sense. And
In the budget, we gave a value of $17,850 for Lathrop's for 3 years. And that includes the costing out of the time and what we paid at the shoppers.
Any other questions from the committee?
You so.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, please.
I'll just add context to my question, which is, I mean, I work at Deerfield Academy, which is a very different resource profile as a nonprofit than most other nonprofits. And the town of Deerfield has high expectations of what Deerfield Academy will cover on its land. We cover pretty much everything. So this is a, sort of a different, the beneficiary here, clearly, the primary beneficiary is Lathrop community on their own land. They have some budget set aside for support of a project like this. And I was just kind of curious the depth of that. Because essentially we're picking up a larger portion than Lathrop itself. On a piece of land that's not particularly publicly accessible. So, or at least is not well known to be publicly accessible by taxpayers and residents outside. And it's a nonprofit. So as far as the money that's coming into CPA, my understanding at least is that Lathrop is not contributing to the tax base that was going into the CPA fund.
we do pay real estate tax.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm
even
not
as a
putting-
nonprofit.
Yes, we do. It must have been part of our founding document, but yeah, we pay the same taxes. I mean, I think it's close to 200,000, if not more. So we are not exempt from paying property.
Though you are a tax exempt.
We are tax
Yeah.
exempt,
Okay, great.
but we do pay property.
Thank you for that clarification. Good to know, for me at least.
Yeah.
For your education.
Well,
Yeah, but.
I don't know how
But we
that's
do not play,
Right.
we pay something in lieu of taxes to the town of
Sure.
Deerfield, for instance, and that's a common, and I think Williston maybe does the same for Easthampton. It's peanuts compared to the amount of real estate that they own. So, but yeah,
I believe we pay about 200,000, if not a little bit. And we pay property tax on North End.
Yeah.
Just like any other. tax.
Greg touched on something that I've thought a lot with this project. As far as saying it's, this piece of property is publicly accessible, but not sort of that aware as far as being publicly accessible. And for a while, I think that was a hang up for me. But the more, just to give you my sort of thinking about this, the more I've thought about this, I think that, not all open space protection is about recreation, right? And I think this is an opportunity to partner with engaged residents of Easthampton to do a project that is going to help the city ecologically, right? While there is a recreation and education component, I think that actually we haven't really had projects like that as much. And sort of when looked at in that lens, that became less of a concern for me as far as the viewer. So
I personally think they're doing kind of above and beyond what any other nonprofit or group would do for a conservation more focused project by allowing to have tours and being, I like that you're
Yeah.
open to somebody contacting you, a interested party or a group, and asking for an individual tour above and beyond just the one time a year. I think that's a great idea. And I think that could be very well advertised on the city website. There's no reason why that information under a conservation umbrella, Conservation Commission umbrella on their webpage talk about these types of things and to be able to access that. I think that's wonderful. So
I also really appreciate, I think the conservatives of the committee really felt heard. I can tell you, I don't know how what the decision-making process is within Lathrop, but it seems like that there's probably a lot of input in kind of the response of that. And I appreciate how thoughtful that was in responding to concerns of the committee. The last question that I have, as far as, and this is really more of an internal question with the committee first, as far as funding, I think being able to do this year by year makes it much more tenable from my perspective. The question I think is, would we do this 3 times, or do we do this once for 3 years? Maybe that's great. I don't know what are you asking for?
All of 99,000 change. So third of that would be 33,000 a year.
I think maybe we should do it year by year because we don't know what funds are going to be coming and going all the time.
Plus they can keep us updated as it, is it working, is it not working?
Absolutely.
I had the same question.
how does that impact your bids? I'm going more to the procurement side of if you're going to be able to get 3 competitive bids, if it's only for 33,000 versus 99.
That's a consideration.
Just throwing it out there. Maybe
Because one contractor has told me already that if 2 bids for this, he'll hire somebody else. They'll hire another person.
so it's adding a job to his company,
His little company, it's a little company.
I guess.
This particular one is a little company. And he wants to bid, but this will be a major thing for him. So if he can know that he has 3 years.
The other flip side to the 3-year thing is, again, I work in construction and real estate, so this is the stuff that pops into my head, is just, how pricing changes so drastically from year to year. And so the benefit of doing it and having them come back with a report and asking for the next tranche of funds is they may need more than 90. They may come back and say, 33,000 only got us so far. The cost of X, Y, and Z has gone up. Labor's continuing to increase. There's not a lot of materials here unless it's the purchasing of native plants, but everything's increasing in cost. And so, if we as a committee commit to 3 years, it's kind of like a guaranteed maximum price for us. Like, they could come back and ask more, but if we just stagger it, they could potentially can come back and say, actually, we need 45 the second year because the costs have increased this much. And that's what the contractors are telling us.
Yeah.
So that I'm just kind of playing both sides here, is the pros and cons to either approach.
No, it's helpful. Here, especially after hearing your second part of your argument with yourself. After the first part, I was because I think that's really where I felt like I felt like I wanted to end up, partly because I just feel like we're just in a different, I think we really need to adjust to being in a different place as a committee. I don't love the idea of tying up funds years from now in different projects without knowing what else is going on. And and I think we would do this with the understanding that our intent, that our intention with everything coming, especially a year from now, to be able to see what was done and be able to show the city of Easthampton, look at the return that you got for this, $33,000. I could see the committee easily doing this again. But I think I feel more comfortable with that than extending a commitment to funds further down the road when we just don't
Don't know what
have,
future is.
yeah, and we don't have the cushion we once did.
Yeah, I have thoughts, but I don't have a decision when it comes to the timing.
Well, neither did she, so that's okay. You can have thoughts of that
Yeah,
decision.
there's part of
Good,
it,
they're helpful.
our budget aside, and under different chapters of our existence, when there have been more funds, tending for a moment that there were more funds and the scarcity and the trade-offs weren't quite as much of a factor, I might be more inclined to grant the full amount and propose it as a multi-year project, which I think it is a multi-year project, knowing that on paper, at least, they're just doing 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, but the actual flow of needs could be very, very different than just a third of the pie, a third of the pie, a third of the pie, and to offer them the flexibility to spend the funds that we think they need to get the job done over that period. Like, that has value. That if I were in their shoes, I'm not, but I would think that maybe that flexibility has its own value. So in my, part of my thinking here is that, well, maybe if we know we're going to commit the funds, we should just commit the funds. And that, with, obviously the trade-offs, there's a whole other purpose to it, but commit the funds and let them work out the plan.
You're saying the full amount.
The full. Again, we're just spitballing ideas.
Spitballing.
Yeah. And
Looking
then
at all the
they know what they have, they work on procurement, they assume the risk of inflation or changing pricing, and they are in the driver's seat when it comes to timeline and going full throttle in the first year and whatever. I don't know. I have to speak my own sort of. I'm an accountant, right? So I deal with sort of buckets and things that are black and white, and so forth. So I don't really know how we gauge success here. Build something, there it is.
Right.
So I'm a little bit challenged by the nature of the project because and my wife is a gardener and I know this is an organic world that we live in. But sort of how do we know that how do we know that the
What are the
goals have
metrics?
been met, right? What are the measurable, right? What are the measurable metrics that we have assigned these funds and we know that the project was a success? So maybe that's a question back.
I'll speak to that,
Sure.
yes. In our
And maybe
proposal,
Northampton's already crossed this bridge and wanted to, know what those metrics are.
in preparation for this project, we had a professional estimate, inventory, cost, and task outline presented to us by Land Stewardship Inc. They've been in the business a long time and know what they do. And they gave us that long report that is attached to our proposal with all the maps and the priorities and how dense the invasives are and each one listed. And on that basis, we made this plan for our 3-year project. And we have set aside funds to have a similar analysis and inventory done at the end of the project so that we'll know. Because you can say, because that's how they do it. These people come in and they say, well, we investigated this according to the accepted methods of our field. And this plot is X% invasives and X% natives. or they'll give a little range. They'll say this is between 15 and 20% natives and so on. And so at the end, we asked them to come in and take a look. This plot was 50% invasive and now.
So they do a baseline assessment and then they'll do a
We
final
have a
report,
baseline
and then they'll do a
Yep.
final report after
Yep.
the 3 years of the,
Yep.
of.
We already have the baseline assessment.
Right, it was part of.
And
the-
those maps laid out by area.
Right.
This area has this percent and this area has this percent.
Mhm.
And in between is a little more difficult because you don't know. I mean, it's a 3-year process. You do the first cut and then you come back and get the resprouts and all that, but we can certainly document what was done.
Hmm.
We've done this before. I know. Because the guy kept count how many invasive shrubs he removed from a particular plot of our land that was funded by Easthampton. We know how many shrubs were removed. You can count that stuff.
Right, right.
We will.
Additionally, I think a metric of success, I mean, I would think a year from now, not only would coming to the committee, presenting that information be critical, but also in looking at, there's a guided walk talk program. Did that occur? How many people attend? Yeah, like what website accessible to the public, did that occur?
We can
So-
make these items conditions of the grant.
Absolutely, yeah. Right.
I didn't. He's always done that, but that's my understanding is we could put some of these things in the as condition.
Right.
So, I mean, at the end of it, you could basically hold that final reimbursement if they haven't met the conditions. That's kind of the stick approach.
Say it again.
The committee or the city could withhold the final reimbursement request if the conditions weren't met. So if there wasn't a website, if there wasn't a public walk, that's the stick approach from the city's perspective is we don't reimburse that final payment until these things are done.
Or we fund a year and see how it goes. And if, and partly I say that so that, I think, well, as a committee, we got to think about if a taxpayer of Easthampton is coming and saying, no worries. At least it's recorded now. If a taxpayer of Easthampton is coming to us saying, okay, you spent $33,000 of our money, like what did we get for that? To be able to say in a year, well, look, this plot of land reduced invasives this much. There was an educational program that, like, we feel pretty good as a committee that was a worthy investment of those funds. We want to keep funding this project in year 2. Right.
We have we've had 4 grants from them. We submit reports, we submit them on time. They're specific. They show the outcomes that we promised. You can check that with Sarah LaValle. They love us over there. That's why they funded us again a few weeks ago. And tonight, the city council of Northampton is meeting to do the final approval, I trust. It'll happen. Their finance
I was gonna say,
committee-
if it doesn't get lost in the school budget drama, but
the finance committee met
Right.
and is going to recommend to the full city council. So I don't see any pullback at this point, but they have continued to fund us in Northampton because we've been responsible.
And I do think that's,
Oh, yeah. it's something.
I do think that's helpful information. One thing I do need to say, just as far as with the funds coming from Northampton and from Easthampton, and I do think it is appropriate for us to fund part of this project now. But it should be noted that we're half the size of Northampton as far as our budget. Just when we're looking at how this all fits together. Just needed to be said. Greg.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm generally supportive of some funding here. But I'm putting my foundation hat on, right? We're grant making wing of city government here, but thinking about how grants typically work. A lot of time there's matching. In this case, there is some matching. A lot of times there's a plan for sort of sustainability after the grant is done. You know, a lot of foundation grants like to see the good of the grant continued even past the grant dollars kind of running out. If it's a 3-year grant or a 5-year grant, what is your plan for continuing the success of such and such a program? That's just sort of the mindset of a lot of foundations when issue grants. For me, this is a relevant question for this application because of the language of the Community Preservation Act, which is rehabilitation, not maintenance. So, and this came up I brought this up last meeting, but I think it's very important for us to kind of see this as like, this is rehabilitating the land. But there may be some maintenance after this rehabilitation. And I just thought I would ask, have you thought about that and what is the
The
plan?
purpose of the grant is to bring all of these acres up to a certain level where the maintenance will not stop, but it will phase off because now you don't have these enormous pockets of invasives reinfecting everybody else. So you bring it up to a level. That's the purpose of the grant. That's the resurrection, if you will, or whatever. Whereas, okay, so now maintenance. It will be crucial to maintain this. And here's the structure that we have in place. We have a committee which has more than 30 resident members. It's been alive for 10 years. In this current year, it has raised $11,650. I just learned this last night from resident contributions toward land conservation. So we have a strong resident base. We have a strong committee structure that expects to continue, expects to pay contractors and enlist volunteer work to keep up with these invasives in the woods. You walk through and, oh, this one's sprouting again, you get it. And in addition to that, I want to ask colleagues to talk about this, we have a strategic planning process underway. We have a budgeting process that pays careful attention to ongoing stewardship of our land. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes, so we're just developing, we're on the final stages of the strategic plan, and there are 3 pillars. And one of the pillars of the strategic plan is environmental stewardship. In addition to financial resiliency and aging in community. Thank you. So it's one of our
Probably one of the most important.
Very
Central.
So it's a pillar of it. So I mean, it's us,
So am I hearing that you think it's sufficient? Your capacity, the resident base that you have, the donations, will it be sufficient so that when Northampton and Easthampton step back from funding this, you'll be able to maintain this going forward? Are we going to be, I guess that's the question for us.
I think to put it another way of what Greg's saying, at least how I'm hearing it, in effectively year 4 of this, are we going to be asked for any money? Right? Like, is this, or would this be able to be maintained without Easthampton funds?
Or 6 or
Beyond.
10.
Yeah.
If we're talking about this as a rehabilitation, then it's not a rehabilitation every 5 years. That's maintenance in my mind. So, so I think you have to think about this being sort of self-sufficient from city funding beyond this grant cycle.
So for 10 years, this resident committee, in coordination with the management, has been working on invasives on our land. And by no means all of that has been funded by anybody's grants from anybody. It's been us. And so we have a 10-year ongoing record of paying attention to our land. And that has shown up in the inventory that Land Stewardship Inc. made for us. There are 10 acres on the north campus where we've had a little help from Northampton, but a lot of it has been done by us. that are less than 5% invasives. And that's adjacent to to an area that is much more invaded, that is managed by the Broadbrook Coalition's Stero Lake. So we have a good track record of ongoing maintenance of our land. It's just what we're asking for now is kind of a great leap forward so that we can bring it to a level where the maintenance that we can do will actually maintain. And, you know, I can't promise that we will always have less than 5% invasives in our woods. Nobody can promise that. But what I can say is that we have the structures, we have the dedication, we have the resident support, we have management support, we have our board support. The board of Lathrop has specifically supported this project, this grant proposal. They had a foot in this. So there is real dedication at Lathrop to keep this going.
No doubt.
Thank you for saying the board support, Barbara. That's what I should have said when I was talking about the strategic plan. So it's a commitment of the board as well, which is as you covered. So.
Committee.
We should maybe check to see if there's anyone from the public that has any questions if we're done asking questions.
It's a great idea, Jay. Is there anyone from the public that has any questions, either online or present in the room?
Public comment or public questions?
Additional commentary? Anything?
I don't see any online.
All right, so what do we want to do? Do 1 year? We want to do 3 years? That's a real
I
question.
mean, I would like to do what Greg's saying. I think in past times, I think it makes sense to do this all at once. I don't think we're at that. I just don't think we're in that position. And
Let's not forget that we have a bunch of projects that we haven't been able to see if we can claw back that money yet.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Which is probably around $100,000 or more.
I'm just like, this is,
I mean,
we have a year. We're spending money that's not in, that's not even on that paper yet. And we have a year before we're going to get any more. I don't, to be really clear, I want to thank all of you, and especially Barbara, for your diligence in this. And I think that this, I've been really impressed, with everything that you put into this proposal. The discussion we're having right now is not about the merits of the proposal. I think I just don't.
Our here comfort zone based
And-
on my
Yes, that's
sense
really
is-
it.
is
That's
to
really it.
do, to do
Yeah.
it annually based on just how.
Yeah.
And I would support that, just so you know, throwing out
And I appreciate the context for sure.
just thinking through. Funding. They would support funding. I think they wanted to know. We can do a 1-year funding tonight.
Is everybody comfortable with putting these conditions, like the bottom of the sheet and then back to as part of the contract when we do the contract?
I'm
Yeah.
not.
You're not.
I don't see it as a necessary condition of this project for me.
Well, that's
Um,
after 1 year that they have met those requirements, that's all.
Yeah, I don't necessarily see it as a requirement for funding. I would love to see that it happened, and I think it would be important for us to see that it happened as we go back into the discussion for second year funding. But I do believe we have a pretty trustworthy, dedicated group of folks that are bringing this
Right.
forward.
But in the past, we've said, okay, part of the contract is you have to put a banner up on this building
Correct.
for that kind of thing. We build those into the contracts, that's all. So I'm just asking.
I'm not saying I'm just saying that I don't feel the need to
All right,
add that as a condition of the
I can be okay with it.
the people who are very concerned about that aren't here tonight on our committee. The ones who vote.
But in, it would be fine with me, and it has been in Northampton, that we submit a report every 6 months or every year or
I
whatever
think it's quarterly.
you want to say.
Yep.
Quarterly.
Yep.
Of progress that has been made.
Let's just make that be the
Just make
condition,
that condition.
and
Yeah.
then we can be
Because-
flexible about,
Shit happens, you know,
Right.
and
Whether-
I'm going
whether the-
into a season where I have to. Just say that.
It's fine with us. It's just permanent record.
Yeah.
I see one anyway, so
Yes.
I'm fine with it.
May the minutes reflect the way that- so.
That.
Anyway, so,
Deal with contractors who want to do it with them, but because we haven't had the funds to commit to them.
Right.
They filled up their schedules, of
Totally.
course they have.
Yeah.
So, I'm not sure how much of this work we can get done this fall. If not, we'll pick it. I mean, we can push this forward. We can push this forward. If
Well,
it's
and
so
still
you
there,
could
we'll
even-
get our contractors. But if you set some specific, targets for us, that makes it more difficult.
So the
Ask
next,
us for progress.
the next round of funding for CPA isn't really even available till next June. So you actually have 2 seasons to kind of utilize this
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
tranche of funds, right?
Okay,
So you've got the fall, and then you have, I know,
Right.
May and June is kind of when you really kind of tackle a lot of,
actually, not so much.
oh, really?
No,
Okay.
May and June is a bad time to go after invasives
Oh, okay.
because the sap is rising. What you want to do it is in late summer and fall. Actually,
Okay.
if we can get the contract, we'll do a big chunk this
Okay.
late summer and fall.
I was
So that
advised.
calendar doesn't quite,
Okay.
doesn't quite.
I'm only thinking of the Japanese knotweed on a property that I'm dealing with.
Well,
And
that-
I was told to treat it in June and September, so.
right,
So ask us for reports, I would
Yep.
suggest, and we will be specific about what has been done,
Mhm.
and then we can have a conversation.
sure, I'm
Yeah.
good with that.
And I also, I'm not opposed to
Mhm.
putting this kind of language in there. I just don't necessarily, I personally don't feel the need to tie it
That's
to.
But if we put the need for reports, we can run down this list and see where these things are.
Yeah.
You don't have to get in on it.
and I think, and just, and putting an expectation out there that, and for round 2, we'd want to know where those things were at, right? Like, and you know, stuff happens, but at least then we'd be able to respond to, okay, this didn't happen and this is why, but we're expecting it to happen next year. Okay. You
I
know,
would like to see the signs at the end of the 3 years.
that's, yeah,
That to me, I mean, you have informational signs anyway. It's not that difficult to just put on there something.
Wait, which time?
You're talking about informational signs on the land describing our work and contribution of the CPA funds. That's easy enough to do, and that's an easy lift.
We
and
generally
doesn't-
yeah.
Right,
I think,
that's all.
I think that we would.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
I do think the like when we're looking at, you know, what are the public benefits of this project and saying number 2 is the education of the public. To me, that is a multiplying of the value of these dollars spent, right? So it's not just the eradication of invasives on that land. It's teaching people about eradicating invasives on their land, on other land, hopefully in the city, I mean, or beyond. But so I do think that education piece is critical. I mean, I really do want to see that happen. If there's benefits to not tying the funding to that in year 1, I that's fine, but I still would sort of put forth that as an expectation that as a committee, I mean, if we're in agreement as a committee that we would be looking for. Great. The last question I have then, if we're looking at 1 year, is the exact amount. When I see that one of the potential contractors indicated he believes that the year 1 task can be accomplished for 33,000 and you're asking for 3351, I become a little concerned that, you see up top?
Yeah, she's just splitting
it
that out, and she's putting the 51 into the first bucket.
Well, I'm just, if the contractor comes back and says, actually, it's 34,
They have.
You
the
have-
matching funds.
yeah, that's true. We have,
That's the contingency,
Right,
That
okay.
this is contingency money.
Yeah.
of their 27,000 that can be utilized to, right? Am I right,
We'll
Barbara?
make it work.
Great. Okay, great. Anything else? Anything else public? Does anyone want to put forth a motion?
Hold on.
Hold on.
Note taker. Okay, go ahead, Jay.
Go ahead.
I know you're gonna make the motion.
volunteer. We
We
volunteer.
didn't volunteer. I was looking right at him.
I don't know about that. I'll propose that I'll make a motion that we approve $33,000 for the invasive management and removal. With the conditions of coming back and giving us a report during the project and giving us an update as things are going, maybe twice in a year or something like that.
To provide
Did you
quarterly,
get all that?
hold on, but they have to provide quarterly reports anyway.
Okay.
So
Not publicly, not in person.
not in person, but they're provided to the committee and we can
Correct.
certainly read them
Yes.
rather than have them just sit in the file.
Yep.
Okay. Being proactive. Sorry.
Love it.
I just don't want to drag people here.
Yes.
No, I agree.
Don't kill yourself over these. Don't make it like 20 pages. We won't.
I promise. I don't know, I don't-
Okay, so Jay makes a motion to approve 33,000. Do we want the 33,051?
Yeah, 051. Yeah. Trying to make it easy.
051 for the invasive management and removal with the conditions to provide quarterly reports.
Reports and maybe just an update twice a year.
In-person
In
update twice a
person,
year.
twice a year, yeah, something like that. And we can be flexible on that.
How about after in-person update after the,
After something happens, yeah.
Yeah.
After 7. Like,
What? After something happens.
Well, I mean,
well, like you don't
nothing-
want,
if, you
they
know,
don't need to come in before fall.
No,
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
what
know.
I'm saying.
Just like, it's the motion.
Because
Oh, we're struggling without
Because it-
Jamie.
no.
Flounders.
The thing is, Jamie would have just written it up. She would have done fine.
Is something really the S word that we're gonna use?
No.
I mean, but I've had other ones.
Okay, Jay makes a motion. We need a second.
All in favor? Aye. All right.
You're not gonna cut stem things until the fall because that's when it gets
Yeah.
sucked back into the ground and kills the plant. So they're, coming in September now wouldn't
Right.
tell us anything.
Winter.
I'm just having.
Come back in the winter. Thank you so much for your patience and diligence in all of this. We really appreciate all of it.
Eyes on the various documents, and lots of good questions raised. And it has made us go back in our own community and discuss these same issues and come back to you. So this is how a public process ought to work, right? When citizens' money is at stake, that everybody is watching carefully and everybody is being as responsible as they can. And that's what we're about at Lathrop, and that's what you're about as a citizen committee. I know what you do. You come here after a full day at work. It's a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Well,
Barbara.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. We know you're the mouthpiece for this grant application on some level. There's a lot of other people that have participated and put their time and
Oh, yeah.
consideration. Thank you all for showing up.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for you after the end of your workday. So I appreciate that. I'm a CPA on the CPA committee.
Oh, there it goes. So, this is gonna get we're hopeful that the timeline will be the same that it would normally be, but essentially we'll have to write this up. We'll have to get this to city council. City council is who officially can give this money, as I'm sure you know from there.
Usually, so it will go to finance first, right? And then it will, I think it gets introduced at city council and then I think they have no, because it's already in finance. So it gets introduced at city council, gets kicked to finance, and then it will come back. Okay. We'll figure it out.
Okay.
Well,
We'll figure it out.
Possible about what the timeline would be for final.
we will try. Our city
Because-
councilor's not here tonight, so
I know.
he's the one that would have been able to, but I can work with the city clerk and see if we can figure
That
this
would
out.
be good, because I can tell these contractors who are waiting what the progress is. I'll just report the fact to them. But I will warn them that the city council still has to affirm this, and then that will be approximately this timeline. Is that okay?
Is there a time after which if Barbara has not heard from us on timeline that she should reach out proactively and
Yes.
be like, and how,
Yes.
what is that? Is that like
There's a new
a week from now or like,
Yeah, I mean,
what can we promise as far as delivering the
There's a new email that.
that was set up an hour ago.
time?
And yeah, it's, oh, yeah, it's,
Like me with my. We usually have our act together.
We're headless without our plans.
it is, hold on. It is,
CPA chair at Easthampton.
yeah, it's just CPA at easthamptonma.gov. Barbara, what I'd say is you can always feel free to email if you don't hear. If you feel like it's too long, email. It'll be helpful. As we are reorganizing and doing this, don't wait. Just email, reach out.
And maybe the mayor's office. Just to make sure, because there's no planning department right now. There's one person down there. So without a planning
Who has
director.
no history of working with CPA.
Who has no history of working with CPA. So we're trying to, the city is still trying to figure out who's taking what responsibilities. So we're a little bit floundering and I apologize for that, but we will figure it out. We are professionals.
All right, so are we, so we will figure this out. And
Yeah.
I do appreciate your functioning like this in the middle of hard.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, have a great night, everybody.
My daughter works at Historic Deerfield.
Oh, who's that?
Well, her name's Isabel. She works,
What does she do?
Isabel Smith-Bobet. She oversees the guides and does so she's a customer service manager or
Yeah,
the
yeah.
visitor service.
Oh, fantastic.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
you can
beautiful.
wave across.
Yeah, yeah.
My son went to Deerfield too.
Oh, wow.
Got a lot of connections.
Thank you.
Good night.
These minutes are gonna be.
Yeah, and I do want to apologize to the committee for not sending this out to you earlier.
It's okay.
My,
It's-
I
I,
wouldn't have read it.
okay,
I literally just came straight from.
still being recorded, just so you know. And
I can just.
this
look
is
at right
exactly,
now in the
that was
moment.
perfect.
I mean, I'm just saying.
Um,
Not for every meeting,
but-
just for this meeting, I was horribly.
The combination of Jamie not being there and the end of my school year, which was like the busiest couple weeks of my entire year, it was not a great combo for bandwidth as far as getting. So moving forward, I hope to have this a little more together, but I do really appreciate everybody being able to come tonight. So, because I really didn't want to make them wait another
Sure.
week. So as far as things that need to happen, like, and part of the, just because I really love leaning on kind of your former planning experience. So we need to write this up.
So we need to write up the grant agreement. We
Right.
just go to the folder.
I saw a
and put in
draft.
that Everything was in there. So there's a CPA contract amendment template and a grant funding contract.
Yeah, it's nice.
What am
Some
I supposed
templates.
to? Okay, that's a contract amendment. That's not what we need. We need
I mean-
a grant funding contract, and then we need to submit a letter. There's letters that need to go to certain people, like there's a letter that goes to finance.
A letter, meaning
I'll
like,
have to go. I'm gonna have to and just get some-
Under admin, there's some draft things under.
There is,
Yeah.
but usually there's like a funding
Okay.
request. that has to
Sure.
go to city council.
There's an
Yeah.
appropriation request to city council, the
Wait, where is it?
mayor.
You got it?
It's the second one down, maybe on
Oh,
the, maybe this one here, second one
Ah,
down.
here we go. Now we're doing-
Appropriation.
Okay.
The appropriation request form that's all highlighted in red and cross-hatched and
Oh, yeah. Oh,
fill in the
yeah.
blanks.
Okay. Oof. I can try to figure.
do you feel like you're able to So I think one thing that I'm recognizing is I think we all might need to do a little more in the to bridge until there's someone from planning helping this out.
Sure.
And to draw on the skills that, we all have. We need to do a little more to make this work. As far as one thing that came at and I don't know where we're at in the agenda. So
There's no new
so
business.
so one thing I do want to say, just an update as far as one thing we said last meeting, that we were going to try to get people in here to present about the funds that were outstanding. I drafted an email to send out. I sent that to Jamie and to Jess. Jess looked through to find the contacts for the different organizations that had that money. In the end, it seemed like it was mostly planning and a little bit parks, because of where planning's at, and because just with the timeline of sort of all those different communications, it got to be only a few days in front of this meeting, and frankly, where I was at with the school year, I thought we'd. Yeah, so the plan. No, and I don't even know at this point, like, how they would occur now that we have that, so I think publicly.
We can use that July 1st. I mean, we're in a new year for the CPA starting July. So that can just be hey, we're in a new year.
Great.
And we are reaching out.
Right.
So I think
Reaching out to parks is easy. Reaching out to planning, just suggested
Hard.
the mayors.
Because if they were projects that were initiated by planning, they still needed to have the support of the mayor before planning would even be able to go forward. So theoretically, she should be able to provide some level of updates. And I don't know if planning was applying on behalf of other organizations, like I'm thinking of the skate park.
Well, for instance, planning, like one of the contacts on there for planning was actually the Manhattan Rail Trail. So planning applied, but we could bring in someone from the Rail Trail Committee.
So
yeah. But still, if someone,
okay.
I mean, all right, so I'm going to, it's a lot of money. I'm going to send that email to the appropriate people to get that on the agenda for July. I'm also going to, now that this email address is established, what I need to do is that should link to all the CPA files, that in a way that's not just read only, but we're able to work with them. And it doesn't currently, so I need to follow up with the Easthampton Tech folks to be able to make that happen. So that's the other.
So I can't even edit what's in here.
Right. So what I'll do.
Request it.
So no. So this is, so I think, I'll follow up with the tech people to make sure that we can access those files. I will give you the password for that account. And I'll also, from that account, send the email to the folks we want to have come in July. I
think it's good to document it.
No, yeah, you're right. Here, pause. You can write that down.
Mostly because I know I'm going to forget it.
That's why I'm writing it. Yeah, you're right. No, but we should.
So, okay. So what is it?
So, I'm going to follow up with the tech people in the city to get the CPA files connected to the CPA, the new established CPA account, email account, Google account, so that account, if you're logged into that account, you should be able to have edit access to all those documents.
It looked like it'll let me download the draft files, but
As long as you can download them, that's
I don't know if I can save them back up there.
Still, it should be able to, I mean, we
Right,
should be able
right.
to, we should be able to log into that account on here and then be able to have all the access. Like, we need to be able to do that. And then once that's done, I'm going to, all right, no, actually I can do this part before that. I'm going to send an email to the organizations with the outstanding funds to invite them to our July meeting.
We tell city staff, we need this. We need an appropriation request. We can fill, you know, like,
Or all the
Let-
money goes back in July.
I'm just trying to figure out a way that we're not taking on the full administrative burden, because this seems like it's getting into places that we probably shouldn't be stepping. Like, I feel like the appropriation world, I'm not sure that the committee should be filling out appropriation request forms. I don't know. It just feels a little.
So,
I'm
so
just
one
wondering-
thing, so, and maybe, and I mean, because I agree with you personally. I mean, that's why I was kind of looking to you as someone who has worked within the city to sort of make that call of like, okay, we just approved $33,000. What do we
Who's gonna
do
do the
now?
next
Who,
step?
how, yeah, who's gonna make that happen in the next steps?
Put the letter
'Cause
together.
I don't know how to, I don't
So
know.
I mean, I would say, Chair, that you could use that CPA email. And again, email, my understanding from Jamie is that the mayor's assistant is taking over, like, administering planning department business until a
Okay.
planner is hired. So if they're getting paid to do that, they should be doing the work.
Okay, so,
So I think that we say that,
It's aspirational, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're getting paid extra in their salary to pick up this work, then there's work that needs to be done, and there's only so much that we can do as a committee. I mean, you know, like, I was sitting here thinking, like, who's gonna update these account balances?
Right.
That's not anything that we should be doing.
Right.
We don't have access to that information. And, or we're gonna ask the auditor to spit out a report to us every month. Like, Jamie did all of this work,
yeah,
and now there's nobody to sort of pick up the pieces
Correct.
from that, right?
Okay.
So,
maybe that's something, because I think you're aware of all that. Well, no. What I was gonna say is not that you do it, is that you say that you're able to sort of write that down and say, these are the things that we feel comfortable doing. This feels outside of our purview. As a committee, we met, we want to know, and I can email that, or you can email that as the vice chair to the mayor even, and say, what's our direction on this now? I mean, I would feel more comfortable with you doing that, just to know what the pieces are, that, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
does that make sense? I mean, no.
yeah, it gets a little sticky for me.
Okay, well, how about this? You could
So,
write it and, or,
I can
and
help
then
you
I will
draft
send it.
I can help you draft it.
and then I will send it.
I can advise you. Chair, I feel like you should be-
I can
should be
email
coming
it.
from you.
I don't
I
feel
can
like
help-
I have the institutional knowledge from
And-
within
and-
here that,
and they have changed since I was here, and they're much different now. So, you know, I don't really know, but go ahead, please.
I think we're in a good place. Because we don't have any money. Just
In a good place.
just approve, like, the only application, the active application that we have.
yeah,
So I really do think that, obviously, writing up minutes and
That's
right
fine.
now, it is our primary task to figure out the administrative functioning of the CPA
Yeah.
committee. I'm not sure we need a meeting in July other than to figure out the
Okay.
administrative function, and if that involves the mayor's office, or maybe we do not meet in July and we meet again. If there's a hiring process in the planning department that's underway, and it's expected that the administrative bandwidth is going to eventually arise that supports the CPA committee out of planning. I don't know if that's an expectation, but that is the precedent,
Right.
then
That may not be the future path.
then we press pause on CPA in Easthampton. We don't have funds. We don't have applications. We don't have an administrator. We don't meet. Or we meet to
talk about that.
to figure out,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
the administrative functioning. I don't think it, I mean, I have my own reservation that shares some of Jess's concerns about us taking on things that are, that we're not well versed in, or we don't have access to account balances. Like, we just are not tied into city and communication and so forth. We're volunteers. And I don't want to misstep.
And there's state
Honestly,
CPA
so-
rules you have to follow and adhere to. So I'm not sure we're well versed on all
Yeah.
the details of that.
So I would be stressed if we had funds and we had 3 different applications on the
Sure, right,
table
right.
and people were expecting a vote
Yeah.
next meeting or whatever.
Yeah, right.
That's not where we are.
That's good.
So, I mean, I really do think, I think we can, I mean, and we'll see if we get applications, but really we're on this quarterly cycle now, whatever, and summer.
Right. Well, that's right.
So maybe we can, I mean, I really do think that maybe prioritizing a path forward administratively is the work of this committee, right? Like, that's, you know, that's what we need to figure out. And if that means having a meeting with actual city government people in July to help us out.
Mhm.
And
I would like that, just as far, okay,
You know,
as the
and
chair,
maybe even
feeling a
just to
little
say, like,
rudderless
okay,
here, like
yeah,
that,
that's right.
especially now that I have bandwidth, like, because before,
Sure.
I agree with
Have
that
not.
too. I think we should pull in the like the actual
Okay.
staff that are still here and say, okay, what,
we can't function without some administrative support. I think
Right.
that's just the reality.
Right.
I don't think, I mean, I don't really know how all the other municipalities around the Commonwealth support administratively their CPA committees. So my guess is most of them have city employed
Mhm.
part-time, or, you know, whatever, somebody shows up from the city to kind of be the liaison
Sure.
for the volunteer run committee to the city,
or it's the city councilor
Right.
or it's the city councilor.
who isn't here tonight. So, you know,
Right.
he has much more, better understanding of the inner workings of stuff, but, and he's
So-
on the finance committee. I mean, that's how it's set up. in
And if he
Hampton.
says,
So,
I can
I
do
can do it,
this,
then
or I
great.
can bridge it, or whatever,
right,
that's
then
great, and we can
but
hear
I
that.
don't feel like it's responsibility or job to be putting together appropriation requests or doing it.
Mhm.
And I don't want to
So-
mess it up either. Like, I feel like, let's do it right.
Right.
We don't have anybody, at least for a little bit, we don't have
Right.
anybody breathing.
okay, so given that, would your recommendation be to actually back off on asking for the money back? Meaning,
I
think we
was
should get
about
an
to go
update.
there. I was about to go there.
But maybe we should get an
The back
update on where
off.
those
Yes.
projects are anyways, just so we have an idea of what's
No,
going on.
I'm of
Okay.
mixed minds about
All
it.
right, okay.
right? Like, on the one hand, to your point, Jay, it's like, if we send the emails out,
Mhm.
then they can deal with it and have time to deal with it while we're getting our ducks in a row administratively. Like, we've already, like, you know, sent things off for full,
So
but
maybe it's for the
but-
August meeting, not the
but
July.
I also, like, there's part of me that's like, I don't want to hear back from them until we
Yeah, right.
have our ducks in a row.
Okay.
right, if they're like, we don't, and then, but then
Like,
where, how do we get that money back?
I
Like,
don't
what does that
want
actually
them showing-
mean?
I don't
Like,
want
we
them
don't-
showing up at a meet, like,
We wouldn't know how to recapture the funds. We wouldn't know paperwork.
Yeah,
that needs to
right,
be
that's
done.
right.
We wouldn't know
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a good
what
call.
order
Ready
is.
to
We
do.
don't,
Maybe
we don't.
we-
know
This
what
is
we
what
do.
I was thinking when I didn't send that email. Oh, that's not at all what I was
I'm thinking
thinking.
about fifth graders.
No, I was like,
Getting
check.
school.
Oh my God. Okay. Okay.
So maybe we
I
just press
actually,
pause on that, yeah, that's it.
I think that makes sense. I do think it makes sense to meet in July with the,
Control
with
meeting in
the,
July.
yeah. And to say, what are we, like, we need to understand a path forward there. He left. Who do we invite to that?
The
The
mayor.
mayor?
I think,
think
and if
the mayor.
it's the mayor's
Assistant.
assistant, then I think the mayor's office needs to be present in whatever capacity.
So maybe it's an email. I mean, I can email the mayor and say, we had our June meeting. This is what we did. Yeah. We, you know, after doing this, we talked and said, we are, I mean, not in these exact words, but essentially, missing Jamie, we feel unprepared to move forward, that we need to understand how this is going to work.
We just need to know what the staff capacity is. We need to understand how the city is going to administratively support the CPA until planning director and senior planner have been hired.
That
We want, that's what it is.
so I'm like, I will send that. That's good.
What did I say?
Yeah,
We-
exactly.
That's why we're recording everything.
I know.
That's true.
We, would like to understand how the city will administratively support the CPA in the absence of so many spelling errors of any planning department staff. Right? Is that what I said?
Sounds great.
All right.
Is that what I said?
So
Just so you know, I'm prepared to press pause on CPA committee activities until we have fully functioning administrative support.
Yeah, I don't even know how applications would even get submitted because they go
Correct.
to planning
Yeah,
department.
right.
If there's nobody
So-
there to even accept
so-
that.
well, that's like how
Done that. We haven't like just pressed pause for 5 or 6 months, but we could. There's not a lot of funds to. And so anyhow, I just wanted
do we have to meet monthly?
No,
I
I mean,
didn't know.
CPA, I mean, the Northampton CPA gives out
Oh, they-
forms twice a year. Amherst does it once a year.
They don't meet in the interim?
No.
No.
They
must
meet
be
like
long.
intensively for,
It must be
in
long
Amherst,
meetings, yeah.
very long. It's very intense
Yeah.
for like, 3-4 months.
Right.
But they queue it up for the budget season. And so then
Okay.
it's ready to go. Like
Okay.
they're between January and April and
So
they're done.
that might make sense. So I think that's our next meeting. Calling the mayor and say,
Fire this down the tube and see what comes.
and then we'll see.
Could also,
Okay, but
we could also notify her in this email that it is the opinion of the committee to pause all CPA activity, right? Until we have administrative support,
yeah, maybe funding activity, right? Like
all CPA funding
applications
activities.
and funding
Well,
activity. Like
or maybe, I mean, if we're having her come in and like, I guess we could put it that way. Like, I guess I'm just thinking if she's coming in July, it's like, maybe she comes in and says, oh, right, okay, now I've thought this through.
she may have
Makes
a
sense.
vision. I don't have the
Do
vision.
you know what I mean? Like,
We don't know.
So
but that's
I think-
like, I don't think we necessarily need to say we're gonna pause until, like,
I think we have to say it or she won't pay attention.
okay,
Okay.
I mean, I think there's a lot that's happening in the city, right? That warrants people's attention. So
Yeah, right.
I think
This
we
may
have-
not be that important.
this may not be that important.
it's to us.
I know.
I know, Scott, you're important, but I think we have to basically say like, in a very concise professional way, like we're struggling and we don't
Yeah,
think we can sort of continue our business
Right.
the way that it's been happening until we have some administrative support from the city, whoever that may be. So she may assign somebody that's outside planning and then they can be here and help us with we can do the minutes. That's not a big deal.
Yeah.
It's the funding request, the appropriation requests and like the account balances
Right.
and somebody who's at the city processing applications. It shouldn't be.
No, definitely not.
all right, so that's one piece. The other piece is what we just did tonight. So we do need to move that forward.
Sure, but you need to access the files first, or that's part of the request. That's part of this email.
Saying, we just approved this.
We just approved this. We
need
need
to
What do we
know.
do now?
We need assistance in drafting an appropriation request, an appropriation memo. We need to understand when the dates are for for finance, blah, 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 all that stuff. I'll help draft
Okay.
that.
Well-
And then you'll send it.
But you can download the templates. I mean, like you did also.
You did, you
You
downloaded
can
them?
download, yeah, so you can.
Okay.
But
so
I
you
don't
can-
know.
But you can't
You
re-upload
Probably
it
can't
back.
save them to that drive.
You can save them elsewhere.
Tell them
for
it-
now.
And where do they go? though?
But if you-
Do you know who they get sent to? Like, do they go to the clerk first?
This is why we-
Yeah, this one, yeah, we can't. Yeah, okay.
No.
And even if somebody comes in as a replacement, they're not gonna know.
I agree.
Like, there'll be a training. So, for any-
Right. But they'll be able to
Unless
do
they've
that like
done
during the
this,
day.
that one, somewhere else.
Right.
Okay, so that's the additional part of that email is saying, we also just did this, we need direction in that.
I would say another important person could be the July meeting. Could be the auditor or
Finance director.
is it whatever, yeah. So,
Heddle.
It's a Hadel.
Hadel, that's all.
Mhm.
Right, yeah, okay. So, I mean, I don't know if it's relevant, but I would just, if we're talking to the mayor about we don't know who should be at the meeting, but
Right.
like internally, that might be one person. I would think Tom Peak should show
Oh,
up at that
definitely.
meeting.
Oh.
I think he has an important, like,
Right.
he sees things from behind,
So
the
he's
finance
on
committee and
committee.
so forth. So he may have some answers that we just don't have.
Yeah.
And our former city council president might have some insight into.
Joe,
Yeah, that's
Joe.
true. That's a good point. Yeah.
we have a finance director.
You don't have a lot of things.
All right.
All
right.
Sorry. I'm just-
What else do we need for path forward? Is there anything glaring that?
I think this is all good discussion.
All right. I think anything else before adjourn?
Are we on for, is it a normal schedule now?
Yeah, it's,
Thursday.
what is it? It's July
Maybe.
18th.
Yes.
That's fine.
Yeah, so-
it's the
Normal
Normal
schedule.
schedule, July 18th,
Third
third Thursday, July 18th at 6:30.
I mean, the other option too is to email Dylan Maxfield, who's the associate planner. He's the only planning staff left.
haven't
I
met the
think we
person.
leave it up to the mayor's office.
Yeah, let's-
Do we need to get the planning office involved? Do we need?
Right.
Like Hadel to show up? Like.
No, I don't think it's due. We need like,
Someone's
Barbara,
like
does
we
the
need,
clerk
we
show
need this, like, tell us who is going to be doing this.
Or who can help the problem solve? Who should be in the room for the discussion?
Okay.
Dylan is good though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I met him, he's sharp, he's
Good,
good,
good.
but I'm not sure if this is what he,
I know he's working
All
with the ZBA. I think he's doing permitting, right?
yeah.
Anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Great.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.